This is What If Deku Was Accelerator Part 6. So, let's continue. Whenever Momo Yaoyorozu noticed that there's a tear in Deku's eyes and dripping down from Deku's eye, she would have asked Deku what was that about. To which Deku just says that there are some dust in the air and it got in his eyes. Him using his sleeves to wipe his tears, Deku would have continued towards his own apartment. And whenever they arrived at Deku's apartment building, Deku would have put down Momo, him telling Momo that he will go first and that she needs to follow him, which Momo is confused by, her asking where they're heading. Deku just saying, "To my apartment, it is closer. Also, I believe it is way past your bedtime, Mrs. Yaoyorozu. But don't worry about security. No one will be able to hurt you. But if you go through my things, then you might get hurt. And by might, I mean 100%. Now follow me." Deku, after saying that, he, along with Momo, would have taken the elevator to his floor. However, when they got into Deku's apartment and/or in front of Deku's apartment, they would have found out that it has basically been ransacked and/or turned upside down. Deku, seeing that, he would have just whispered, "Those guys never learn, do they? Always picking a fight knowing that they will lose." Huh? Deku, noticing that they even broke the front door, he would have said, "Well, looks like I got one more reason to kill all of them." Momo, hearing that, she would have been confused, but Deku would have said, "Don't worry about it, just follow me. Also, don't start looking around." Him leading Momo to his room, as Deku, when he opened the room and/or opened the door, he would have found that it has not been touched, him thinking, "Well, at least they know where not to touch." Deku, after opening the door even wider, he would have walked in to check if any of his things has been touched, which it has not. Him saying, "Alright, Mrs. Yaoyorozu, you'll be sleeping in here tonight." Momo, walking in, she would have noticed that this place has not been touched and/or this room has not been touched. Her asking, "Is this your room?" "Yeah, deal with it." Deku, while he was saying that, he would have turned around and walked back out of his own room. Him turning around and holding onto the doorknob when Momo is still inside. Him saying, "Don't worry, there are no insects here. Along with that, there should be a blanket next to the pillow. You can use it if you want to. You can also use the aircon if you want to. Now, good night, Mrs. Yaoyorozu." Deku closing the door into his room. As after that, Deku would have walked into his living room and looked at his couch, and/or looking at his sofa, him thinking, "Well, at least I can still use that to sleep." Now, we'll cut to the next day, with Deku whenever he woke up finding out that there is a blanket on his body, him thinking, "The hell? I don't remember putting this here." And when Deku got out of the couch and/or got off of the couch and started stretching, he would have felt that someone is behind him. As on instinct, Deku would have immediately turned around and grabbed this person by her face, him saying, "Who are you? And why are you in my home?" Momo saying, Hey, it's me, please don't kill me. You're supposed to protect me, right? Why are you attacking me?" Huh? "Oh, it's you. Don't ever do that again. Next time, I might have hurt you before I can stop myself. You got me?" Yes." "Good. Did you have breakfast yet?" No." "Well, then let's go get it." Now, whenever Deku and Momo are eating breakfast, Deku would have called Mr. Yairozu, him saying that he already rescued his daughter and that where they should meet, and or bring Momo to. To which Mr. Yairozu just tells Deku to bring her to her home. And after telling him that, Deku would have just ended the call. As after they finished breakfast, Deku, along with Momo, would have went to Momo's home. Now, whenever they arrived, they would have been greeted by Momo's maids, along with Mr. Yairozu, him asking Deku to go into the house with him, which Deku does. As whenever they arrived at a meeting room, Mr. Yairozu would have told Deku that he already transferred the money into Deku's account, and that he's very thankful that Deku brought his daughter back. To which Deku just nods and asking if that is it, him saying, "Did you seriously just brought me to this meeting room just to say that?" No. Then get to the point, Mr. Yairozu. Yes. Mr. Yairozu getting on his knees, he would have said, "Please, Mr. Accelerator, become my daughter's bodyguard." Huh? I know this may trouble you, but please, I'll pay you whatever you want. Just please protect my daughter. She's everything to me. Without her, I'm nothing. Momo, being also surprised, she would have said, "What? No, I don't need a bodyguard. I can protect myself." Mr. Yairozu saying, "I would have believed you before this incident, but because of this incident, I believe that you do not have the strength to protect yourself, young lady." "No, I don't need to. I can protect myself." As Mr. Yairozu and Momo would have started to argue, Deku just standing there looking at them, thinking, "Is this really worth the trouble?" Him saying, "I'll think about it. You will have my answer tomorrow if nothing goes bad." Deku, after saying that, he would have just walked towards the front door, and/or the door to this meeting room. And whenever Deku opened the door, he would have saw a maid walking towards the room, her holding a plate which has 2 teacups and a teapot. But whenever Deku walked past this maid, he would have noticed something strange about this maid. Him turning around and looking at the hairpin of this maid, him thinking, "Wait a minute, that hairpin, is it me or does it look sharper?" Oh well, not my problem. But that was when Deku would have stopped, him thinking, "But I don't understand. Why does her smile look so much like my mom's?" Deku having a flashback to whenever he was small, with it basically being a dialogue between him and his mom, it being, "Don't worry, Mom, I'll protect your smile." "Oh, my dear Izuku, thank you. But can you actually do that?" "Of course I can, Mom. I'll be a hero that can protect everyone's smile." With the flashback stopping there, Deku would have thought, these flashbacks are getting more frequent these days. As if I can redeem myself. As that was when Deku would have heard something breaking, him turning around and looking at the place where he just came from, basically the meeting room, him thinking, was that the sound of a cup breaking? Why did it came from there? Deku wanting to find some answers, he would have walked back over to the door and opened it, him seeing, well, Momo lying on the ground trying to gasp for air, along with the maid holding onto the hairpin that Deku thought was sharper than usual and pointing that at Mr. Yairozu's neck. Deku seeing that, he would have put his hand towards that maid as a gust of wind would have been basically fired towards that maid and sending her flying away. This freeing Mr. Yaozu, as Mr. Yaozu would have immediately crawled towards Momo, him checking if she's still okay, which she's not, him basically begging for Deku to save her. To which Deku would have immediately tried to assess the situation on Momo, him saying, "Hey, maid, what did you give her?" "Like I'll tell you, Accelerator, but I'll give you a hint. It's a poison that spreads rapidly." "Really? How fast?" "That you have to figure out yourself, Accelerator." Annoying. Deku, seeing the shattered cup on the ground, he would have asked Mr. Yaozu if he drank the cup, and or drank the tea that had poison. To which Mr. Yaozu said that he didn't. Deku thinking, come on, think of something, damn it. You're supposed to be smart and strong, right? Then think of a solution and save this girl. Wait, can I? That's it. Deku, having an idea, he would have grabbed onto Yaozu's shoulder. Along with that, grabbing onto Momo's, let's say her shoulder as well. Mr. Yaozu being confused, but Deku would have just told him that he needs to stay still for a few seconds and look at their surroundings, since while Deku is saving Momo, he cannot get distracted. Which Mr. Yaozu just nods, since this could save his daughter. After seeing Mr. Yaozu nod, Deku would have started the process of trying to save Momo, with the first step of the process being identifying the poison, which was quite easy since he can just compare the bodies of Mr. Yaozu and Momo to find out what the poison is. And after, let's say, 1 to 2 seconds, Deku would have found the poison. As after Deku found out what the poison is, he would have taken his hand off of Mr. Yaozu and put that hand onto Momo, him basically concentrating on Momo to find the poison and take it out of her body. However, while Deku was searching through every single blood cell to find if there is any remnants of the poison, that quote-unquote rogue maid would have gotten back up, and this time she has a gun on her hands, her pointing the gun onto Mr. Yaozu and pulling the trigger, with the bullet having to go straight through Mr. Yaozu's left leg, this causing Mr. Yaozu to fall onto the ground. Deku, hearing the gunshot, he would have tried to speed up his process, or his processing speed, as Deku, whenever he was double checking to see if there is any poison in Momo's body, he would have found out that there is one good news and one bad news. The one good news is that there is no more poison in Momo's limbs and her torso, but the bad news is that the poison has spread into her brain. To which, whenever Deku found out, he would have of course immediately moved his left hand into or on Momo's forehead, him trying to get the poison out before it does any major damage. However, while he was doing that, he would have basically heard someone walking in front of him, him looking up to see that quote-unquote rogue maid pointing the gun into his forehead at point blank, saying, "Oh, look at how the great Accelerator is begging for his life. Huh, too bad. He told me that I had to kill you." Deku, hearing that, he, while using all his strength to extract the poison, would have said, "Who sent you?" "Oh, who sent me, you say? Let's just say it is someone that has 3 words in their name, and The first word starts with an A.
Oh, 4-1, is it?
Huh, first try. I guess you're not that distracted then. Oh well, any last words?
You will regret being his henchman.
As if. As that rogue maid would have pulled the trigger. And whenever the bullet touched Deku's forehead, Deku had just finished the process of extracting every single bit of the poison out of Momo's body. Him thinking, alright, I finished the process. Now I just have to reflect the bullet. Wait, why isn't it? As to his own surprise, that bullet would have actually went straight into Deku's forehead, which would have of course caused Deku to fall onto the ground. And whenever he did fall onto the ground, that rogue maid would have saw that there is a ball of black liquid on Deku's right hand, which would have confused her. As that was when Deku would have started to get back up while his right hand is on top of that bullet wound, him saying,
Did you really think that a bullet wound is gonna kill me? Then I think that you, along with All For One, is underestimating me.
Deku, while he was getting back up and of course saying that line, he would have been using his vector control to try and minimize the damage that was done to his brain. Along with that, controlling that ball of black liquid, which basically was the poison. Him saying,
Why don't you try your own medicine?
the maid still being shocked to see that Deku survived a wound and or a bullet in the head, she would not have reacted, as Deku would have shoved that ball of black liquid and or the poison into the maid's mouth, him also accelerating the process of the poison spreading throughout the entire body, as within seconds of drinking that black liquid of poison, the maid would have collapsed onto the ground. Along with Deku falling back onto the ground, he would have continued to hold his hand over his forehead, trying to stop the blood from coming out of his body and also keep his consciousness. Him being able to keep his consciousness awake until the ambulance arrived, which was about 2 minutes later. Now we'll cut to about 2 weeks later, with Deku waking up on a hospital bed. Him thinking,
What the? Where am I? My head. Why does it feel so... Oh yeah, I got shot in the head. I'm surprised I'm still alive.
as Deku would have tried to get up on his bed, but to his surprise, he could not move his legs. I mean, he can, but just not very well. Along with that, he found out that he could not pronounce words very well. And while Deku was trying to figure out what happened after he fell unconscious, that was when the nurse, along with a doctor, would have arrived saying that Deku should rest up and basically go back to sleep, with the doctor just hearing Deku saying,
What's wrong with me?
Ah, yes, about that. The bullet that got into your head. It didn't damage any major parts of the brain. However, it did damage your ability to calculate, along with the ability to walk, also the ability to speak. But don't worry, we already have a solution to deal with those problems, so for right now, just rest up, okay? Deku, hearing that, he would have just listened and continued to go back to sleep, I guess. Now, after let's say 2 to 3 more days, a doctor would have walked up to Deku saying, You're Accelerator, right? Deku, waking up from his sleep, he would have just barely able to make out the word yes. The doctor saying, "Good, then I'll get straight to the point. I have a proposal for you, Mr. Accelerator. You see, thanks to the help and funding of Mr. Yaozu, we are able to create a supercomputer that can help you with your disability and help you calculate, along with return you the ability to walk and speak properly. And we can give this technology to you. However, it might cost a fortune." Deku just basically telling the doctor to give him that device and that he doesn't care about the price. To which the doctor just nods and say, "Good, then we will begin the operation as soon as possible." Now, we'll time skip again to, let's say, 3 days later. With that operation being successful, Deku would have gotten that choker-style electrode around his neck, which basically looks like the one Accelerator has around his neck. Along with that, the battery to that choker will be on the right side, it looking like a black box, and/or a black block. Now, just to explain a bit, there are 3 modes to the choker. The first one being, well, off, the second would have been normal mode, and the third would have been what I would call quirk mode, which basically allows Deku to use his vector control. And if you're wondering why there is a separate mode for Deku using his quirk, it's because to use Deku's quirk vector control, you need to carry out a massive amount of calculations, which cannot be done by the computer without an increase in energy cost. Hence why there is a new mode for Deku using his quirk. Along with that, whenever Deku switches the color from normal to quirk mode, the battery life of the choker would have changed from 3 days to 15 minutes. And yes, I forgot to mention, but if Deku does not use quirk mode, then the battery will be able to be used for 3 days straight without turning it off. Now, after this explanation, let's continue with the story. After receiving the device and knowing what that device can do, Deku would have asked the doctor to give him 3 more extra batteries, to which the doctor would basically say, "Sure, but it will cost more time and more money, since right now, they only have that battery." The doctor pointing at the battery that Deku is using right now. And as Deku was about to leave his bed, he would have found out that he still cannot walk properly. The doctor apologizing to Deku, saying that in normal mode, Deku still cannot walk properly, which is why the doctor brought this cane. The doctor giving the cane to Deku, Deku would have said, "Really? A cane? Yes. Question. Can you create a custom crutch that I designed?" Sure. I believe we can create it as long as we have the design." "Good, then come back 2 days later. I'll give you the design then." By the way, if you're wondering how the crutch will look like, it basically is the one that Accelerator has. Now, we'll cut to after a month of Deku being inside the hospital, as it would have been the day of Deku's discharge. And after receiving those 3 extra batteries and basically paying the bill, Deku would have left for the front door. But whenever he got out of the hospital, that was when he would have encountered Mr. Yaozu, with him bowing at Deku while thanking Deku for saving his daughter, along with that apologizing for basically causing this injury. However, Deku would have just shrugged it off, saying, "I look forward to working with you, Mr. Yaozu." Mr. Yaozu hearing that, he would have said, "So you're accepting my request?" "Yes, I am." as I believe that this will be a good place to end this part. If you guys want part 7 to this what if, then help me reach, let's say, 20 likes on this video. If it does, then I'll record and post part 7 to what if Deku was Accelerator as soon as I can. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed and have a nice day. Bye!